Today, we are diving deep into a 9-digit number that, it kind of unlocks a whole hidden side of the US economy. It's called the Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, or ITIN for short. And believe me, it's so much more than just a tax tool. It's really a story about compliance, community, and some really powerful unintended consequences. So let's break it all down. So it all starts with this huge challenge the IRS was facing back in the mid 90s. You had millions of people earning income here in the US, but they couldn't get a social security number. So the question was, how do you bring them into the tax system, legally and fairly? The answer they came up with was the ITIN. So, what is this thing exactly? Well, an ITIN is a 9-digit number, and it's used only for tax processing. Think of it like this: it's a key that lets people without a social security number open the door to tax compliance. The IRS issues it for one main reason, and that is filing your taxes. All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to cover the basics: what an ITIN is, and more importantly, what it isn't. Then we'll walk through the seriously tough application process. After that, things get really interesting because we're going to explore how the ITIN basically created a whole financial ecosystem. And that, of course, brings up a huge question about confidentiality. Finally, we'll pull it all together and see what this little number has really become today. Okay, first up, the core mechanism. To really get what the ITIN is all about, we have to be crystal clear on what it was designed to do and, just as important, all the things it was not designed to do. Okay, this right here really cuts through all the confusion. The most important thing to see is the purpose. An SSN is for tracking your earnings for Social Security benefits down the line, but an ITIN, it's purely for federal tax reporting. And you gotta look at that last line. It's a massive, massive distinction. An ITIN does not, I repeat, does not authorize work in the US. And let's be absolutely 100% clear on this: having an ITN doesn't make you eligible for Social Security. It doesn't change your immigration status one bit. It is a very narrow, single purpose tool that the IRS created just to collect taxes. That's it, period. So, if this is such a limited tool, how do you even get one? Well, that brings us to the application process, which we're calling a gauntlet for a very good reason. It is a tough, document heavy process with some pretty big hurdles. Every single application kicks off right here with the IRS formed W-7. But it's not just about, writing your name and address. You actually have to prove you have a legitimate need to file taxes just to get your application looked at in the first place. And the process itself is a series of really high-stakes steps. Check out step 2. You have to attach a fully completed tax return with your application. And step 3, that's often the biggest hurdle of all. You have to provide original documents like your actual passport or officially certified copies. You have to mail in the real thing. And just look at this list. I mean, this really shows you what a high bar they've set. Unless you have a passport, which is the only document that works all by itself, you have to come up with a combination of at least 2 of these other documents. The list is long because the IRS standard for verification is incredibly high. So, why would anyone go through all this trouble? This quote from an applicant named Alicia, it really gets to the heart of it for so many people. Even though she owed taxes and was facing this crazy complicated process, she saw it as a kind of civic duty. It was her way to participate and contribute. And now we get to the part that is just, well, it's fascinating. The ITIN was created just for taxes, right? But it has unintentionally kicked off this entire ecosystem of financial services. It's created these pathways to being part of the economy that I don't think anyone ever imagined. So the first step, and it might be the most important one, is banking. A lot of banks will actually accept an ITN as a valid ID to open an account. And that right there, is a total game changer. It lets people move away from a really vulnerable cash only life and into the safety and stability of the formal banking system. And once you have a bank account, what's the next logical step? Access to credit. And we're actually seeing financial institutions respond to this need. Credit unions like St. Cloud Financial and Embold have created specific lending programs just for ITIN holders. We're talking everything from a car loan to get to work to a credit card for everyday stuff. And this is probably the most profound outcome of all. Having access to these loans and credit cards lets ITIN holders do something that is just fundamental for their future. They can build a US credit history. And that's not just a number. That's the key to getting better insurance rates, business loans, maybe even a mortgage one day. It's the absolute bedrock of long-term financial stability. This quote from Ernesto, he's a house painter, it just connects all these dots perfectly. For him, filing taxes isn't just about being compliant. No, it's about creating a formal, official record that he's contributing to the economy, a record he hopes is going to anchor his financial future right here in the US. But this bigger role for the ITIN raises a really critical and pretty sensitive question. Just how private is the information you give to the IRS? And this brings us to this central tension, the promise of privacy versus the very real fear of that information being shared. So, on paper, the legal protection for your privacy is strong. There's this law, Internal Revenue Code Section 6103, and it basically creates a powerful wall, saying the IRS generally can't share taxpayer data with anyone, and that includes other government agencies. But that wall is not absolute. The law has very specific, very narrow exceptions. So, information can be shared for tax administration inside the Treasury Department, or, and listen up because this is the key detail, for a non tax criminal investigation, but only if a federal court orders it. And this quote right here just perfectly captures that core anxiety. The fact that any exception exists, it doesn't matter how narrow or legally restricted it is, it creates what feels like a risk. The fear is that this huge database of ITN information could become a tempting target for immigration enforcement. So let's pull all of this together. The ITIN started out as a simple little tool for tax administration. But as we've seen, it's pretty clear it has evolved into something way more significant, both for millions of people and for the entire US economy. And the sheer scale of it is just immense. As of late 2022, there were 5.8 million active ITINs being used. So we are not talking about some small niche program here. This is a system that's operating at a massive scale inside the US financial world. And the economic impact? It's just as staggering. In 2019 alone, tax returns that used an ITIN resulted in a net contribution of $5.8 billion to the US economy. That is a direct, powerful financial impact driven by this community, which really leaves us with this one fundamental question. Is the ITIN still just a temporary bridge for tax compliance, which is what it was designed to be, or has it unintentionally evolved into a permanent, essential pillar of the modern US financial system? The answer to that is going to shape millions of lives and billions of dollars for years to come.